Hey, what's up, podcast and YouTube? My name is Josh King, and this is EST, the podcast for established church leaders by established church leaders. What's going on, Sam?
Our air conditioning unit blew up, and it's going to cost us $2.2 million to fix it now.
Yeah, Sam, many people don't know this, but anytime there is cool weather in Florida, Sam's one air conditioner unit is the facilitator of that cool weather. I don't know how in the world you have a $2.2 million air conditioning unit, but don't tell me yet. Let's talk about the sponsor,
we'll get to that
and then you can tell me why this air conditioner is the size of or the cost of a small mansion.
Yeah, yes, small mansion, $2.2 million to get you a big mansion,
big one.
Unless you're on the water, and then it's a lot pricier.
Is there any other kind of mansion? Waterfront.
That's true. That's true. But hey, before we get into this, let's thank our sponsor, Church Teams. The great people at Church Teams want to serve you. They want to provide you the best resource out there for church management software. Their products are great. They've got a full slate of products that they can offer. If it's church management software that you need, they can solve your problem. So go check them out at est.church. And learn more about them. There's a free offer at est.church. You just fill out a little form. They will follow up, get 2 months free. They do a lot. They do texting. They do check-in. They do giving. Pretty much anything in that world. I love their pricing plans as well because they are scalable. So it doesn't matter how small or large you are, they can serve you. So thank you, Church Teams, for sponsoring the show. All of you listeners, go to est.church. to go check them out.
That's right. Thank you, Church Teams. All right, so tell us why you have a $2.2 million air conditioning unit.
Yeah, and there's a point to this. We just announced our capital campaign, so I'm actually able to be public about this. I didn't want to put a podcast out there and have key leaders call me and say, "Wait, what's going on?" Mm-hmm. It's never good to announce to the podcast world before you announce to the church. So I waited a little bit on all of this. So here's what's going on. When I got to West Bradenton, we had a massive amount of deferred maintenance. So part of this episode is going to be about deferred maintenance. Another part of it's going to be about how do you raise funds, capital campaign. Millions of dollars of deferred maintenance. And the motive behind how we got to where we are was good. It was, let's just, fix things on the cheap. Let's not waste God's money. Let's do everything as inexpensively as possible. And, that's a decent strategy. But if you do that all the time and every time, you end up falling behind.
Right.
And what was, $1 million is now $2 million. What was $100,000 is now $200,000. Inflation has kicked in. Things are just a lot more expensive. So we needed new windows, we needed brick sealant, we needed a new commons area, we needed sanctuary renovations, bathrooms, pretty much the entire facility, new roof. We've done it all. And this is just the latest part of that process. So we have 62 units right now. So you mentioned one. There's actually, I think it's 62. It's something like 61 or 62 units.
Wow.
And we also have a chiller system. I don't want to bore our audience with engineering talk, but it's a very efficient system that hospitals use or large buildings in Florida because it just gets so hot here. So all of this, the whole system's going, and all of it needs to be replaced. And we have contracted out with a provider to basically replace everything in the church, almost everything in the church, and put it all into one system, basically a much more manageable system. And by the time you add up all the nickels and dimes that it costs to do that, well, it's roughly $2.2 million for air conditioning units. I bring this to everyone's attention because 90% of the cost of a building will occur after you build it. So there are some churches out there that have built $100 million campuses. They're out there. It's rare.
Yeah.
And they're, for the most part, those churches are of size. And as of right now, most of those churches can pay the bills. But in 20 years, when all of their AC units start to go, they're probably going to get some sticker shock, because we have 62,000 square feet, which is a decent sized campus. But if you're on our camp, it's 4.5 acres, 62,000 square feet, kind of goes straight up because we're 3 stories, kind of jam packed in a neighborhood. If you were on our campus, you would say, wow, it's a bigger church, but you're not going to be overwhelmed by the enormity of our church. We're just not one of those churches. We're not that size. But if you built a $100 million campus, as some churches have, if 90% of the cost of a building occurs after you build it, it's going to cost you $1 billion with a B, $1 billion to keep up that campus. Part of that's air conditioning units. Part of that is carpet. It's just maintenance that needs to be done on the facility itself. So there is this looming deferred maintenance crisis that's coming, not only in larger churches, but smaller churches. I've talked to several churches through Church Answers. Yeah, our air conditioning unit went. We need new windows. We need this. We need that. By the time you add it all up, it can be quite expensive. So don't overbuild. That's the lesson. Don't overbuild if you can avoid it.
Is that lesson number 1? When you are building, build smaller, not more expensive.
Absolutely. We do a lot of consulting at Church Answers, and we have told churches that we're thinking about building a new worship space. We've said, don't. Hey, we've got a space of 600. We're thinking about building a space of 2,000. That's a very common move. It's like, don't do that.
Yeah, I had a friend that was building a brand new church building in my previous town. And he actually said that he spoke to some of the leadership of James River Assembly. And they said at James River Assembly that they regret building as big as they built. And that's a huge mega church, very successful church. But they would much rather have built a smaller. So they actually built this church. I can't remember what it was. I think they were running 2,000 people, and they only built a sanctuary that holds just almost 1,000. Something they purposefully walked into this new facility day one in multiple services, and for a long time that was unheard of. It was odd, but I would venture to say the vast majority of the listeners of EST are saying, man, I wish somebody 20 years ago had told our church that, because now I'm in a building that we cannot keep up with. I can't pack out. I can't get enough people in this thing. And the other side about this, I know we're talking about money, but the other side about this is think about launching multiple services. The bigger the room, the more people you have to have just for that second service to even get off the ground. You have to have at least I would say 40% of the room before that service even launches. And so when you do that math, if your sanctuary seats 1,000 people, you want to launch another service, you're running 800, it feels crowded. Or now post-COVID, you're running 700 and it feels crowded. You got to get 400 people to launch another service. So by that, you've got 300 left in this service. Just do the math. It's not sustainable. And if you listen to a previous episode where we talked about shifting dynamics in your culture and in your community, you're just headed for a headache. So don't build too big.
Yeah, and if you inherit too big, one of the number one church building projects right now is renovating sanctuaries to be smaller. So when you talk to church builders, it's one of the things that they're doing. They're creating more common space area out of worship space areas, and making that room smaller. So if you have the money to do it, obviously, people aren't spending money to go bigger. They're actually spending money to go smaller. And here's the other thing. So we're going to have to do a capital campaign to raise this $2.2 million. Do you know how hard it is to sit down with key people in your church and say, can you pay for the air conditioner? It's not a fun conversation at all.
Right.
Now, thankfully, my church gets it, and everyone understands we're committed to this location, as we talked about in one of the previous episodes.
Mm-hmm.
We're here at 1305 43rd Street West. We're not going anywhere until Christ returns. So let's invest in our facility. Let's keep it up to date. We'll get it done. We're going to get this project done. We'll probably have to take a little bit of debt on the balance sheet to pay for it, because the air conditioning company has told us that we actually have to pay them in regular installments. They're not too keen on us just paying them when we get paid from the congregation.
Yep.
When the congregation gives. So the other side of this is, the larger the facility you have, the more that you're going to have people give to things that are difficult for them to give to, like carpet, like air conditioning, like new windows. That's just really hard to raise money for those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we do something here. It's not unusual to us, and I would encourage other churches to figure out how to do this. We do this out of excess. Thankfully, for the last 5 years, we've always netted a large excess at the end of the year and of cash. And even if you don't, I would put it into the budget. But what we did was we sat down and we figured out this maintenance cost. We're in a relatively new facility. And so we have X number of air conditioner units, and we have X number of windows, X number of square footage of carpet, X number of chairs. And all you got to do is and it's tedious, but we sat down and figured it out. And then you figure out the life cycle of these things on a normal use life cycle. We have several vehicles, some tractors, some other equipment, just all kinds of things. Look at all of it. Now, you don't need to, I don't know, this, I'm looking at like this little digital board thing that has microphones running into it. We're not worried about that necessarily, but the larger scale items. And then we figured that out and put money in each one of them. Where I like this idea, or why I like this idea, is let's just, to use round numbers, let's say over the life cycle to replace this air conditioner unit, you're going to need $10,000. I'm just using it hypothetical here. So once you get to 10,000, you stop. You don't put any more money in that account. You're putting all these little pockets of money. Therefore, if the AC unit goes out and you only have $7,000 in there, well, praise God. You've got $7,000. You're not asking the church for 10. You're now asking the church for 3. So this is a really great model to use. Obviously, you may feel like we're never going to be able to build all that out. I'm telling you, you'll do a lot better than you think, and you're going to avoid this circumstance. There's no way for Sam to have known this, but Sam, I'm sure that if you looked into an account somewhere and you were like, hey, good news, guys, we got 1.2 million sitting in the air conditioner savings replacement fund, so we need 1 million more to update this, that would have been good. And so that's something that I think as you're looking towards your successor, somebody's going to take over after you. As you're thinking about that, start planning for there to have financial health.
Yeah, that's called a sinking fund.
Oh, really? It has a name?
It's called a sinking fund. And what you're so you can Google that if you like. And it's called a deferred maintenance schedule. So the deferred maintenance schedule, that tractor we know has a 10-year lifespan. That air conditioning unit we know has a 20-year lifespan. You don't get 20 years out of air conditioners in Florida, but you get my point. So you create the deferred maintenance schedule.
Yeah.
And the schedule then dictates how much you put into the sinking fund. And it can be either in your you can do that through the operating budget. There's some different ways to do that. I like including deferred maintenance in the operating budget. So, we have $1 million budget. That'd be a very big church budget for most churches. But let's say we have $1 million budget. And $50,000 of that, 5%, is going to go into a deferred maintenance account, because we know in the next 5 years, we're probably going to have $250,000 worth of expenses in our facility. Great. Set aside money out of the operating account. And then, as money comes into the church, you then put it into that sinking fund, which is typically a designated account, but it runs through the operating budget. So you don't have to ask people to give above and beyond.
Right.
If you can avoid that, that's always better. Now, for us, we had too much deferred maintenance to just pay
Yeah.
for all of it out of our budget. And that's why we're going to have to take on a little bit of debt here. It's all manageable, and our stewardship committee has done a very fine job of cash flowing this whole thing with what we expect to bring in versus what the amount of debt we're going to have. But if you can get ahead of the game, that's the point. If you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, we don't have any debt, maybe some upgrades to the facility that we need, go ahead and start doing this.
Yeah.
Your future self will thank you 5 years from now when the air conditioning unit goes and it's like, yeah, well, we actually have $50,000 that we can put towards this.
Yeah. Right.
And it's not something we have to ask the church about. It's always better to be able to do it that way.
Yeah, they will rise up and call you blessed. The other thing is, I talk to churches regularly. I think this is one of our points that we want to bring up here. I talk to churches regularly, and they're in this wonderful, miraculous season in which they are going to pay off the debt. They do a big old campaign or something like that. I talked to a church just a couple of weeks ago. They were having one big offering, and that one big offering was probably going to cancel out the rest of their debt. They'd been paying on it for, 20 years or something like that. And so I saw the same guy about a week later, and I said, did it happen? He said, yes, more than enough. We had more than enough. And I said, let me ask you a question. What did that free up in your budget? What financial? And he said, $30,000 a month. And I said, that's awesome. $30,000 a month. That's great. What are you going to do with that? He started talking about these missions projects. He started talking about these renovations and stuff. And listen, everybody gets excited about that freed up money, but I have never had that conversation where somebody starts saying, we're going to put a lot of it in deferred maintenance. We're going to start saving this money off to the side. I strongly encourage you to transfer those budgets over that way. Once you pay off your debt, if you're sitting right there thinking we're about to pay off that debt and say it frees up 30,000, great. If it frees up 30,000, man, put at least 10 of that every month. Just go ahead and budget. Instead of when you stand up in front of your congregation and say, we're putting X number of dollars, whether it's $100 or $10,000 into savings per month for future cost, because these air conditioners are going to go out. We're going to need to replace these chairs. This carpet needs to go. That sort of stuff. They're not going to look, they're going to think you're wise. You're looking ahead. So this is a great opportunity. I think, Sam, don't you say that they should continue to give to a building fund, right?
Yeah. If you break this down on a personal level, like for your household, let's say you had a car payment, or you bought yourself a nice F-150 Raptor, whatever you have, Josh.
Yeah, big one.
Do you have a Raptor, really?
No, I do not have a Raptor.
Okay, I was about to be really impressed. I know you're a Ford guy and you like the F-150.
I do. Yeah.
Let's say you had to take out a note to get the truck, and you're paying it off.
Right.
Well, you could say after you pay it off and you've got the title now, it's yours. You could say, hey, we can spend this money on whatever, more entertainment or renovate the house, or you could just use that same amount of money that you're used to paying to start saving up for your next vehicle.
Right.
That's the way that these sinking funds work, particularly if you pay off a note. Just keep that same amount, or if you want half of it or 3/4 of it or whatever the percentage is, and start saving towards future things that you know you're going to have to buy a new vehicle at some point. You know you're going to have to buy a new air conditioner at some point. Why wait? Go ahead and start putting that money aside. Because now to the issue of capital campaign, if you don't, you're going to have to stand in front of your people like what at the time of this recording, I'm doing it this coming Sunday. And I'm going to have to tell them that we need you to give above and beyond. Here's why. And oh, by the way, it's for all this stuff behind the walls. It's new pipes, it's new electrical, it's ductwork, it's chiller stuff, it's super cold water in the walls, and it's not necessarily going to be a distraction to the gospel or anything like that. But my worship pastor in our staff meeting this week, he was like, man, this really is going to disrupt the flow of the service. And I'm like, I want it to. I want people to pay attention. I need them to know that we got this coming. Yeah. I would much rather not have to do that. But with the capital campaign, our approach is just straight up honesty. We're not trying to lump this into some other project and, whatever. It's literally, hey, people. Well, what I've said is, and this is, I've been told I can't say it anymore. But my saying so far has been hell is hot, church is not. Because it's air conditioning units. So hell is hot. The capital, the name of the capital campaign is hell is hot, church is not. And my worship pastor thought it was so terrible that I actually went out and got as a domain name hellishotchurchesnot.com, and it forwards to his own personal page now. So if you go to hellishotchurchesnot.com, you can go check out Jordan Richmond and his latest album. There you go.
All right,
and Jordan doesn't listen to these episodes, so it's,
hell is hot, church is not what? .com?
.com. Hell is hot, church is not.com. Yeah, go check it out.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. You could say, you think it's hot here campaign. That would maybe be a little bit better. Hey, I've never done a capital campaign. Are you going to do this all in-house? I know there's some firms out there, some different people that will help you walk through these things. What's your advice on that?
Both and. I've used groups to help me, particularly on larger projects, and I've done them in-house. If you've never done one before, I highly recommend that you seek out help. Church Growth Services is a really good capital campaign provider. They also do a lot of stuff with generosity. They're not just capital campaigns. So you can go to their website, Church Growth Services. Mike Stottlemyre is the one who leads that particular company.
Yeah.
So I would highly recommend someone like Mike Stottlemyre at Church Growth Services to help you with a capital campaign, especially if you've never done one before. I've been here long enough, and I know some of our high capacity givers have like a relationship with them. I don't know who gives what. I don't see a name and an amount. So but I know generally who can write larger checks. And I know generally who are faithful givers. So I'm working more just on a personal level with this one because it's just a 1-year campaign. It's not a 3-year campaign. And we're basically just saying, church, you really don't want the air conditioners to go out, do you? So just please give above and beyond.
Yeah.
And we set up a page for it on our website. So having a landing page is also very helpful. So ac.westb.org is our landing page for the capital campaign. It's a place where people can give directly if they so choose. Or if you're a listener and you just feel compassion for me and you have
rich.
significant net worth and you're like $2.2 million, that's nothing. I'm a hedge fund manager.
Yeah.
I got that in my back pocket right now. So sure, I'll go to ac.westb.org and give to that. I'm happy to give to that. So I'll just do a little promo.
Yeah. Hedge fund manager. I only need 1.2. So you can just send me and I can buy a Raptor if you give me that. So yeah. Have you heard of the idea? I was talking to a pastor once, and he said that another guy who is all into these capital campaigns. In fact, he was very well known for capital campaigns at his mega church. He actually left that church, retired, and now runs campaigns for people. He believes you should always be in a capital campaign. Every 3 years, he launched a brand new capital campaign. Have you ever heard of that idea?
I have. I don't know that I would say you always need to be in a capital campaign, but I agree with the general sentiment of if you are an established church, I like having 3 buckets of giving. You have your operating giving, your budget giving. That's where people should tithe. I'm going to show my traditional old school colors here.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I believe everyone should tithe. I have a biblical conviction you should tithe, and you should tithe to your church. I think that's how the kingdom of God works.
Yeah.
Now, beyond that is sacrificial giving. What we do at West Bradenton is we have a bucket for the building and a bucket for missions. So the way that I give is I have a mark above the tithe that I want to give to the church, only because I want to lead out of generosity, and I want to lead by example in my church. So I have a certain generosity goal with what I give to the church. And then above that, I always give to the building fund every month, and I always give to the mission fund every month. So I understand when he says, let's have a campaign, let's always be in a campaign. I don't know that I would necessarily feel the need to do a 3-year themed campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, having those 3 buckets available where you can give to above and beyond the operating budget, I would say having that mission fund and that building fund is important, because there's always some institutional givers. Like some people just love giving to missions, and they love that idea that if they give to missions, literally all of that's going to go to the field. And I think that's worthy, and that's what we do with our mission fund.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also institutional givers who actually enjoy, like I'm the one that replaced the windows. There's always people and I'm kind of that way, honestly. I like giving to the building fund because I know that it costs money to keep the facility running. Yeah. So I'm a 3 bucket kind of guy. Hey, tithe and then give above and beyond to these other 2 categories. I know that there's one fund people out there that despise that kind of model. And I might be using some strong language there, but they would prefer not to have that kind of model. And I respect that. I do, the one fund model, but and there's other extremes where there's like 40 different designated accounts that you can give to. One. I don't necessarily want to go down that road either, but the 3 buckets make sense to me, and that's what we do.
Yeah, the other thing that I would just drop in here real quick, because we're about out of time, hope that this has been helpful to you to think ahead and to raise money, is I learned that when you're doing these capital campaigns, the smaller ones, one thing you could do is, he says, to always make sure that you've got 3 things. You've got something that they can buy into. That would be your air conditioning fund. Something they can get in. People just like building buildings. They like things. So like sometimes I've seen churches put a new front on, or maybe a playground or something like that. It's all part of the same capital and something they can believe in. And that's where you can like partner with digging wells in some other part, or a Bible translation or something like that. It's the same campaign. We're going to raise $3 million. And here are the 3 things that we're going to do with this. We're going to replace our air conditioners. We're going to build a new handicap accessible playground. And we're going to translate the Bible into this language. And it really compels people on those 3. They want to see something tangible. They want to, and so I thought that's really helpful. And I've tried to implement that on smaller scales whenever I'm trying to raise money. Like I said, I've never done a real capital campaign with theming and anything like that. But I just say, here's the things. And maybe that's where you are. You've got some deferred maintenance. I would encourage you to throw some other things into that pot right real quick. And it might help. It might help raise that money.
Yeah, and the last thing that I'll mention that's just kind of a practical tip here, we've always used budget surpluses to handle a lot of maintenance items. Yeah. So we intentionally budget conservatively. We try to budget below what we believe. We try to budget our expenses below what we believe our revenue will be. Not above. We don't, hey, we think we can bring in 1 million, so let's budget 1.2. I don't think that's wise. It's, we think we're going to bring in 1 million, let's budget 900,000. And through those budget surpluses is how we've done many, many, many new projects: new elevator, new windows, new roof. I mean, goodness, the list is long. So I would just say budgeting conservatively and then knowing that you're going to use surpluses for capital projects is another good way to go. Because we've done that, we've actually, a good chunk of this project, this $2.2 million, we're actually going to be able to pay for up front. Because we've done that every year. So it takes the edge off. It's still not going to be able to do it debt-free, unfortunately, but it does take the edge off. So don't be afraid to budget conservatively and then use budget surpluses each year to pay for capital projects.
Absolutely agree. We do the same thing, budget 90% budgets. That's the goal. Sometimes it'll be 92, 95, something like that. And then with the excess, we'll give some to missions, some to savings, and some to projects. And so there's things around the church that you just recovering the parking lot. Man, that's not fun. It's not sexy. It's not something that, like anybody wants to give to. But
it might be sexy project. If you went out there and did it yourself without your shirt on.
Well, maybe. But I will tell you this. I'll also tell you this, that like when you're the leader of something and you got a brand new, fresh parking lot with brand new stripes, there's something cool about it. There's something really nice about having that. But it's the kind of thing that you don't think of, and that's the kind of projects that you can go ahead and tackle. We're not going to look up and need to do it because we took care of it earlier on when we had the opportunity. So That's all I've got, man. Hopefully, we're gonna save some people some time, some stress, some heartache.
That's what we hope to do here at EST, and want to thank the sponsor Church Answers, particularly our bookstore. Go to churchanswers.com, click on the bookstore link. We've got curated content there. When you do make a purchase from the Church Answers bookstore, a portion of those proceeds goes to help certify African pastors. A lot of countries require certification for pastors to do their work, and we are providing a means to be able to do that. So we've also just got, I think, a really good bookstore that will deliver physical products to your door. So go check us out at churchanswers.com and click on the bookstore link.
Yes, thank you so much for listening. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe, and we will catch you next week.